Welcome to the Honest Dog Breeder Podcast with me, your host, Julie Swan, where each week we dive in to discuss all things dog breeding so you can build a breeding business you love, producing dogs that fulfill their owners' dreams. I believe you can have an honest dog breeding program that also pays the bills. So throw those pods in your ears while you're cleaning kennels. I'd love to join you.
If the lamp is empty, if there's no kerosene in it, it doesn't matter how many times you try to light that wick, it's not lighting.
Yeah.
You need to refill the lamp.
Mm-hmm.
And just like if you turn that wick up high, so the flame is huge, it'll burn through that kerosene much faster than if you turn it down low.
Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to have my good friend and brilliant woman, Kate Hesse. Kate is a mental and emotional hygiene coach for women seeking to quiet their inner critical voice and develop a greater sense of freedom, serenity, resilience, and joy in their lives. Through her insightful blog posts, individual coaching, and on-demand classes, she'll teach you how to transmute self-criticism into self-love, all by transforming the daunting into doable with simple and clear action steps. Her powerful teachings have been featured on Optimal Living Daily and Global Entrepreneurship Week, Kansas City, and her adoring fans and clients have called her compassionately insightful and life-changing. I can speak to that. And when she's not transforming lives through coaching, you can find her coaxing plants into bloom, knitting cozy socks, or curled up reading a good book. Thanks so much for being here, Kate.
Oh, thank you, Julie. I'm really excited.
It's so nice to have you here. So we know burnout is a thing in dog breeding.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, you call yourself a mental and emotional hygiene coach. Can you tell us what that is and why it matters?
Sure. So most of us are familiar with physical hygiene. It's the stuff we learn in health class in school. It's taking a shower and washing your hands and brushing your teeth. But the piece that we really miss out on in school and often in life is the mental and emotional hygiene. So mental and emotional hygiene is thinking and acting in ways that allow you to approach everything in your life with healthy thoughts and emotions. And I like to think about it like washing your hands. So when you wash your hands, you're removing the dirt and the germs and the things that you really don't want to be part of your life anymore.
Right.
And mental and emotional hygiene is similarly, you are washing away, removing the thoughts, the emotions, the patterns of behavior that aren't serving you anymore.
Oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pause here for a sec. Do you want to, where are we going through all these individually or were we separate?
So I'm thinking the going through the nervous system, and then that's kind of the end of introduction, and then we'd move into module 2 of masterclass, and then you clear the space, and then I think if we'll do each of them individually. Does that make sense?
So clear the space would be a separate one, and then clarify your priorities. And then what about the podcast part of it?
Do you want to do that first and then come back?
That's kind of what I was thinking, because it fits. And then I thought we were talking about burnout for that one. Or do you need
We are talking about burnout for that one. Yeah. When you introduced it with burnout, it's like, oh, are we going into the podcast?
Right. I guess I was thinking that part first. My bad. I didn't expect
No, that's okay. So yeah, so for the podcast, I think just ask questions about burnout, and I'll just I don't think worry about talking points for that.
Okay. We'll aim for like 20 minutes or so, and and then we can have the rest of it on.
Yeah. And I think the nervous system, though, is an important part for both of those, because that's why your burnout is the nervous system.
Well, let's touch base on it then. So go ahead. So I'll ask you what that looks like and how that's different from being tired. And okay. And then I'll chime in with something. Okay. Coming back. All right, Kate. Burnout is the thing of the day, and it's big time with dog breeding. Holy cow. Can you explain to us what burnout is and maybe how that looks different from, like, just say being tired?
Sure. So burnout is actually a physiological response. Burnout is what happens when you have reached adrenal fatigue. And so to understand what that means, let's rewind a little bit and talk about the nervous system.
Sure, tell me.
So our nervous system has two different states that it's in. The first is the sympathetic nervous system, and that is your fight, flight, or freeze response. The parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest. When we are stressed, when we are overwhelmed, when we are worried, our body enters sympathetic nervous system. While society and our technology has evolved rapidly over the last several hundred years, our bodies haven't. And so our bodies don't understand that the dangers that we once faced when we were on the savannah and being chased by a lion, or in the forest and being chased by a bear, are not the same dangers that we face when we're running late for work, or we, have a dog who is not taking who's not taking a pregnancy, and just you're frustrated cycle after cycle.
Yes, or just poop for days. That I think is a very high level of stress. Yes.
So while those things can be really frustrating or overwhelming or cause us stress, they're not life or death situations. Unfortunately, our nervous system doesn't know the difference, and so it responds to it as a life or death situation. And what it does is it escalates your respiration rate. It causes stress hormones to pump out, including adrenaline.
Okay.
It causes your body to go into a state where it is prepared to fight for your life, run away from an imminent danger, or absolutely freeze motionless, so that, playing possum, playing dead.
Absolutely. So we don't get that break anymore, is basically what's happening. So we're not relaxing. And so on a physiological sense, this burnout is actually this state of constant stress. Is that kind of the idea? Or is it adrenal fatigue, meaning you've wore out your stress?
Right. So your body can no longer maintain that state of fight, flight, or freeze, because your adrenals can no longer produce adrenaline to keep going. When if you've been in a situation where you've ever said, "Oh, I'm running on adrenaline," you know that feeling of just have this unbelievable energy,
right?
But when you come down, you come down.
Yes,
and the same thing happens on a much larger time frame and a much larger bell curve with burnout. Is you are running on those levels of adrenaline for so long that your body can't produce them anymore at the rate you need them.
That makes sense. And I think I hit that because for a time there in my life, maybe or maybe not, when I was going through my divorce, coffee didn't work. Like I literally could drink a cup of coffee in the afternoon and would not get any caffeine kick out of it. And so I think I was just tapped out. I had no more resources to push.
Yeah. So the trick about coffee, interesting little tidbit, coffee doesn't give you energy. It just allows you to borrow energy from the future. It's just energy that you then have to replenish. So
with more coffee?
With the coffee, or with more.
Can I replenish it with more coffee? No.
You can't. You can't. You replenish it with sleep. You replenish it with other things that rest and restore you.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
So when you don't have that energy to borrow from, of course, the coffee isn't going to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So what do we do with it? Well, okay, cool. So now I'm in burnout. My coffee doesn't work anymore. Still tastes good, but what do we do?
So the first thing is, I think, getting really clear that it is burnout. And a great way to make that assessment is if at the end of a long weekend, or a very restful few days, or a vacation, you feel a little better. That's a good way to know that it's burnout. If just one night of good sleep makes you feel better, you're probably just exhausted.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if after you've had that period of rest, you're still feeling the symptoms that we typically think of with burnout, you're feeling lethargic, you're feeling like everything is just too much, you can't, then even if you've had that rest and you're not feeling any better, that's when you start thinking about it possibly being depression. And so that's a time to check in with a doctor.
Okay. And so depression would be like rest isn't fixing this and making it better.
Right.
And
That's a different biochemical
what
imbalance.
are some other symptoms that you might notice to differentiate between that fatigue, adrenal fatigue, or and burnout or depression?
There's a lot of overlap because your body, in both cases, your body is saying something is very wrong here. And so it's sending you some very similar signals. But if you start feeling like things are helpless or hopeless, that's another sign that it might be depression, and not just burnout.
So maybe it's more motivational in your head as opposed to the physiological, I feel exhausted.
So burnout, because it becomes chronic,
Hmm.
that also will manifest in your head in terms of motivational. If
Okay.
you feel like you can't ever get anything done, you start
Hmm.
wondering what the point is of trying to do anything.
I've been there with dogs. Yeah. I think it happens so much with puppies, and it's like, you just clean the pen and everything's nice and the litter box is changed, and then you feed them and they tip it over and they go to the bathroom in their bedding, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God. But day in and day out, and if I'm still struggling with my adult facilities and everything else, it gets to that point where you question, okay, what the heck am I doing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once, if you have any question, is this burnout? Is this just exhaustion? Is this depression?
Hmm.
Make an appointment to see your doctor, check in with your physician.
Mhm.
They'll be able to help you really differentiate what's what there.
Okay.
But if you've taken a little rest, if you got away for a long weekend and you're thinking, okay, I actually feel a little bit more rested, I feel a little bit more excited to tackle things, or
Mhm.
I think I might be able to do this, and you're ready to take that step back from burnout. uh,
Mhm.
First step is to start refilling your energy reserves, because you can't work from empty. So I love to use an example of, those old kerosene lamps where with the wicks that you turn up and down.
Mhm. Yeah, they're like a cloth wick, I think.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you think of yourself like that oil lamp or that kerosene lamp,
Mhm.
if the lamp is empty, if there's no kerosene in it, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many times you try to light that wick, it's not lighting, or it
Yeah.
won't stay lit. You need to refill the lamp.
Mhm.
And just like if you turn that wick up high, so the flame is huge, it'll burn through that kerosene much faster than if you turn it down low. So there's two ways to approach it. The first is you need to refill the kerosene. And
Mhm.
the second is you need to be aware of how quickly you're burning through your fuel.
And that makes sense. And so you would say probably some techniques. I mean, all the basics like get more sleep, drink water, eat a healthier diet. Okay. But from a dog breeding perspective, a lot of that's going to be making things easier for yourself. Right. So we're looking at like, okay, let's look at our facilities and like, okay, what is the one thing that is making my skin crawl every single day? Can I fix that? So are the puppies stepping in their water? Maybe we could flip over to those rabbit waters that hang on the side of the pen. Or if you haven't litter box trained your puppies, oh my gosh, please go do it. It is a life changer. So those sort of things, right? So we could look at our situation, look at our life. Maybe you feed twice a day, and you don't really need to. It's actually pretty good for the dogs if you feed them once a day. And so maybe you could cut your time in half by doing that. So we're trying to find pockets of time where we can kind of replenish ourselves and
Where the first piece is absolutely is we're identifying where can we cut out something, where can we start saving a little bit of time. And
Mhm.
then the second piece is filling it with something that will restore you.
What are your favorite tips on restoring?
Anything that makes you feel like you just got a warm, loving hug from your favorite person in the world. That is a great way to just, because we're all different. What will restore
Sure.
each of us is different.
Yeah.
So this is a huge conversation to dive into.
Right.
It goes into what's self-care and what's not self-care.
Sure.
Um, if you do something and you just feel like, oh, like that was just so nourishing for me on a deep level, that's
Mhm.
a great way to identify something as restoring.
Yeah. That makes sense. I know for me, like it's so simple. Everybody's, oh, do the gratitude stuff, but like it works. Like it works. And so I found like I had these like index cards that had 10 lines on them, and I would just try to fill up half of them with like one sentence gratitude things.
Mhm.
And it actually helped me sleep better, which I thought was the most ridiculous thing. At first, I really thought it was ridiculous. And now I really appreciate it. And so I found that little thing made me feel so good.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I think in dog breeding, we get so wound up in working with our dogs and taking care of and managing our dogs and managing our breeding program and blah. We forget that we have dogs that we can enjoy. We don't sit for a minute and enjoy them on the couch with watching a movie, or, we don't take them for a walk anymore, because who wants to take 8 dogs out for a walk? But it's like, you know what? I'm going to pick a favorite today and I'm going to take that dog for a walk.
Yeah, and really enjoy it while you're out there. Really notice it.
Yeah.
The two techniques that I'd love to share that I think are really helpful and take just moments.
Okay.
So, a lot of things that we're talking about are situations where you're in reactivity. There's situations where you've looked out at the pens or
Oh yeah, that
walked into a
happens.
situation where the dogs are just in chaos.
Mhm.
and and you are responding and reacting to it. And
Totally.
so what that's doing, as soon as you see that and you are dealing with this stress and this chaos, that's going to trigger that sympathetic nervous system. That's going to
Oh
trigger
yeah.
fight, flight, or freeze, which is going to ramp up those adrenals that we're trying to get
Oh
down.
yeah.
So once the emergency piece is dealt with, if there is if there are dogs fighting or something that needs to be resolved
Sure.
immediately,
Absolutely.
um, I'm gonna offer two techniques that I love, which are really powerful for shifting you out of that reactive sympathetic nervous system and
Mhm.
into a much calmer place in your parasympathetic nervous system, where your body ceases to pump out those stress hormones, your respiration rate returns to normal, your body relaxes,
Yeah.
all kinds of systems and functions which are turned off during sympathetic nervous system turn back on.
Yeah.
The first one, and this is really great if you're taking a dog out for a walk,
Mhm.
is the mindful moment.
Okay.
All you want to do is just notice the world around you with all 5 senses. Be as descriptive as you can, describing it, like looking at it and observing it to yourself. So, for instance, instead of seeing a tree, you might see a maple tree with moss growing up the side and leaves that are just starting to change colors for the fall.
Okay. Yeah. So like you're really noticing. It's not like, hey, there's a tree. It's like, no, I'm going to appreciate everything that's going on with this tree right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why that works is because you'll use all 5 senses. So what do you see? What do you taste? What do you smell? What
I'm
do you
going to go lick that tree. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
maybe not lick
Maybe.
the
Okay.
tree, but
Maybe I've done it. Don't tell anyone. Uh, but and I, I think you're right. Like we could do this with our dogs too. Cause I think so much of the time we go out there with our dogs and I'm like looking at you, making sure you're not getting skinny. How's your poop? How's this going? How's this going? Checking teeth. It's very like, almost like clinical in a way. And sometimes I think we get lost as dog breeders and we actually forget that they're dogs and personalities and like, and it sounds terrible, but you can get into that mode where it's like, oh man, I'm just trying to stay ahead of it. And we forget that they're real and that they are living things in our care. And so sometimes I try to go out there and I just try to like appreciate one little quirk about each one of my dogs. Like even Rusty with his mashed up nose because he got in a bad fight a couple years ago. But all those little quirks, and just seeing each dog. And it's like ever since I started doing that, I just noticed like I feel it more at peace with my program. And it's the little things.
here's the science behind why this works. I love diving into the science because I think once you understand the why, it stops being so, well, I'm doing it because somebody told me to do it.
It
And
feels less cheesy, I think, when you understand why, because I'm always like, oh wow, like if people knew that I was like just checking out my dog and trying to appreciate their foot right now, it'd be weird. Yeah.
so when you are really getting into that minutia and noticing all the details,
Mhm.
pulling you into the present moment, you're using all of your senses to be really present. And the truth is that very rarely is there danger in the present moment.
It's true.
And if there is danger in the present moment, then you're reacting or responding to it.
Sure, because you're aware, you're fully
Right.
aware. Mhm.
So when we get stressed, when we worry, when we get into these mindsets that will lead to burnout, that trigger those sympathetic nervous system responses, we're either living in the past or we're living in the future. We're either thinking about things that we wish we could have changed that have already happened, or worrying about things that might happen.
Yeah.
So
And
when you pull yourself back into the present, you're pulling yourself out of those two places and into a place of calm.
I think a lot of those are kind of negative thought patterns. Like, I think something that is really, it was a big struggle for me is when I had all the dogs that got sick from Giardia. I just like, I could not think about anything else. You know, I felt bad about the puppies that had died. I was just stressed out about the whole situation. Every single time I looked out there, I just triggered this cycle of thoughts that was like, oh, you're a failure as a breeder, and oh, you suck at this, and oh, you can't even take, you know, it was just
Yeah.
like, it was awful. And then of course I'm like harassing my future self, being like, do you even deserve to breed? I don't think you're really good at this anymore. You know, it was really hard. And it was very, very hard to focus on anything else. Like even like I felt like a robot, like even as a mom, I was like, yep, reading books, doing this, doing this, doing this. And the whole time spiraling, thinking about all that crap with the puppies.
Yeah. And when we get into stories like that, where we get into stories of worthiness and individual value or skill sets,
Mhm.
a lot of that comes down to some bigger work. Some of these things will help in the moment pull you out of it, but a
Yeah.
lot of that stuff, that mental and emotional hygiene, is some bigger and some deeper work. And I know you're familiar with doing this type of
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
but it's looking at those questions and what is the story that's underlying that story, and what
Yeah.
is the mindset shift that frees you from that
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
how do you retrain your neural pathways to be thinking in a different way and to be processing and seeing things in a different way.
It's so true. And to give you guys the secret, it's not, well, it's Julie's secret. What I found is that I had to channel all my problems as something that was for the better. Meaning not that we lost those puppies, but that now I understand it and I'm fully aware of this problem. And now I can make a process to fix it next time, to prevent it next time. And now I can teach you guys, you know, techniques I've used that have helped so that you don't have to struggle with it in the same depth that I struggled with it. And so I found that looking at all those things as growth
Mhm.
is key. And then the other thing I'll just throw out there is that the breeder world is so frustrating because the Facebook groups, you go in there and you're like, I have this problem. And people are like, well, you're a terrible breeder and you can't do this and you can't do this. And it's just so negative and not supportive. And I'll tell you what, I have yet to meet a breeder who's seasoned, who hasn't dealt with some sort of parasite, some sort of virus. You know, it happens to all of us. And to, you know, if somebody's like, well, I've never dealt with anything like that, then chances are they just haven't been breeding all that long. We've all been there. We've all struggled. And the ones who stay in breeding have figured it out and made it better. They've taken those issues and they've solved them. And it actually makes you better for your puppy buyers because they're going to run into those problems too. You think my bird dogs and my puppy buyers don't get worms? Of course they do. But now they can call me and send me pictures and I can be like, oh yeah, that's tapeworm.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a saying that I love that is one of my life mottos, which is, I live a life of lessons, not regrets.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. And so as something comes up that doesn't work out the way I would have liked or wished or had hoped it would,
Mhm.
what is the lesson? What can I take away from it to grow and to learn and to implement in the future, so that, just as you're saying,
I love that.
we'll get better.
So, okay, so give it to us one more time.
Okay. I live a life of lessons, not regrets.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. And I think so much of the time, you know, you'll have that first litter or two and it's like, oh my gosh, this was so much chaos. This is so stressful. Because you meet a lot of people that don't have a plan in place. They don't have a big goal at the end of it. And these breeders, they'll get out after a couple litters because they don't have a bigger picture they're working on.
Yeah.
And what I've found is if you can just fix one or two things each litter, oh my gosh, where you'll be in no time. It works so much better.
Other technique, which is a really great one, especially if you are in the middle of discovering a mess or a stressful situation, is the audible exhale.
Okay.
So I love this technique. We'll do it first, and then I'll give you the science.
Okay.
So you can do this eyes open, eyes closed, whatever works for you, whatever feels comfortable for you. If you're going to keep your eyes open, just kind of get a gentle gaze so that you're not staring intently at something.
Okay.
You want to do these with me?
Sure, I'll do them with you.
Okay. And so we're just going to take a full inhale, feel your belly expand, feel the breath move up into the rib cage, maybe even your collarbones lift. And then open your mouth and let it out with a, do 2 more. And when we exhale with that, we want it to be just a release of emotions. It's not a, ugh, I can't take this one more day, but that feels nice. And the reason this works is one of the things that happens when we shift into sympathetic nervous system is our respiration rate increases. We start breathing faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so while our breathing is a system that works on its own, you don't have to think about it, you just breathe. We also can control it. And so when we consciously slow the breath down, we're actually sending a signal to the body that says, we don't need to be in a stress response right now. We are safe. It is okay to shift into rest and digest. It's okay to shift into the parasympathetic nervous system.
And that's where we can actually think more clearly and logically and not think about murdering our children or our dogs. So I think it's good.
Yes, because when you are in the sympathetic nervous system, your logical reasoning process center of the brain actually turns off. The part of your brain that is working and responsive is your survival brain.
Oh, totally. And I think it's so easy to have that triggered with dogs, because it's just so unexpected and we don't always speak their language. So it becomes very frustrating.
Yeah.
Why are you barking at 3 a.m? My neighbors hate me.
Yeah.
And I can see.
So just taking those 3 audible exhales before you respond, before you and try to react to it, allows you to come at it with a clear head, a calmer state of mind, and the ability to look at it perhaps once more before you act and say, is there an easier way to do this or deal with this? And my instinctive immediate reaction was to it.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on, and I am so excited to do this masterclass with you. Oh, it's going to be so good. Tell us where people can find you, Kate.
So people can find me at nourishnestbreathe.com. And I've got a ton of free resources there. And then they can also find me inside the Dog Breeder Society with a masterclass coming up this month.
Very exciting. I'm so excited. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you guys. And we'll see you next time.